Good morning. This is Philip Koerper's show. I'm Philip Koerper. This is episode 53, October 22nd, 2018. Great to be with you guys today. This is a big, fast-growing conservative podcast. Looking forward to sharing some stories with you. Got a lot of stuff to talk about. I wanted to lead off with these recent approval ratings of Donald Trump. The Donald continues to go up in popularity. This is so awesome. NBC Wall Street Journal poll released Sunday shows 48% of registered voters would prefer having the Democrats in control of Congress compared to 41% supporting the GOP. That 7-point gap has narrowed from the 12-point gap the Democrats had in September. So that gap is narrowing. Of course, it's common for the party not in power of the presidency. People like a balance of power, and so they'll usually support the other party. That's why in this midterm election, with the Republicans controlling all three powers of government, the trifecta, it's great. And I live in Kentucky. It's a trifecta in Kentucky. Oh, I'm so blessed. The GOP is totally in control of Kentucky government and the United States government. I love it. That's why so many great things are happening. And then Donald Trump's approval ratings, the Donald comes in at 47%. Oh, yes. Yeah, that's his highest ratings yet. Oh, I love it. Oh, I love it. And I had so much fun. Saturday, I was down in Orlando at Disney World and Epcot. And it was so much fun. And I wore my same Trump shirt, my Make America Great shirt. It says Trump on the front of it. I love it. And about 6 months ago, I wore this down there, and just a couple people said they liked my shirt. I mean, all day long, 2 to 3 people said it, and then I got a few glares. Well, I wore it on Saturday. I did get a few glares, just a few glares. But I got an incredible, I forgot I would have it on, and people would just reach out their hands, and they were walking by me and they want to shake my hand. Multiple people shook my hand, got lots of kudos. Lots of people said they loved my shirt, they loved Donald Trump. Oh, it was just amazing. It was incredible. Yes, I mean, now, it's okay to be a Trump supporter now. I mean, hopefully someone's not going to just yell and scream at us. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the show, which happened to Mitch McConnell. And so anyhow, just amazing. So Donald can, the thing is, the Democrats, remember, they sold this guy as Donald Trump being this homophobic, racist, bigot, crazy, philanderer kind of guy, that he would, the stock market would crash. Remember, Krugman said that, and that, it's basically the oceans would flood the earth. I mean, just, incredible fear-mongering going on with the Donald if he ever became president. And they've been just screaming 11 out of 10 forever. And you know what? Things are okay. The earth is still going around the sun. The economy's doing great. The stock market's done great. Unemployment is at historic record low numbers. I mean, just incredible, prosperity right now. All these manufacturing jobs are back. I mean, it's just incredible. Foreign policy victories with North Korea, just amazing things going on. What a blessing. And so Donald just continues to do better. I just love it. His rallies are just incredibly packed. They're getting more popular all the time. So I'm just excited. I think there's just a lot of momentum going on with the Donald right now. Oh, but we've got Democrat socialist Ocasio-Cortez. Okay, this wide-eyed girl from New York who won that primary. And anyhow, she is just going on. Her latest gaffe is that she was calling for an immediate all-out mobilization of American industry to combat climate change. Okay, is climate change, is this a catastrophe? Is this a man-made catastrophe? There is no evidence that changes in the climate, that the portion of any kind of change in the climate is attributed to mankind or our polluting the air. There is no real way to prove that. That has not been proven. She says that it's a direct existential threat it poses to the world is similar to the danger posed by Nazi Germany during World War II. So, and then she said, so when we talk about existential threats, the last time we had a really major existential threat to this country was around World War II. She said this in Queens, New York. And she said, and so we've been here before, and we have that blueprint of doing this before. Okay, so anyhow, she continues on. Some people are not so excited that she's comparing Nazi Germany and the killing of the Jews to climate change. This kind of hysteria about climate change is just ridiculous. But it plays, and I've gone over that before in previous podcasts, it plays into this theory of we need big government to protect us from this big evil thing. And unless we have complete cooperation, meaning socialism or big heavy-handed government, we can't protect ourselves from something. So it gives the liberals and the people on the left just a huge excuse for the government to seize more power, to have more taxes, and to be more bossy about what we can or cannot do. The left really loves that. I love that the Donald is saying, hey, we're gonna pull out of this deal with the Russians on medium range missiles. We're going to pull out. So this is something that Ronald Reagan did, Ronaldus Magnus. I think it was 1987 that he had a deal with Mikhail Gorbachev, and where we would not make missiles with this intermediate range. Well, the Donald is saying that the Russians are just not following this, that they're producing these weapons. Okay, and then China now is doing this too. They're not even part of this deal. So the United States, we're keeping our part of the bargain, supposedly. And so the Russians and the Chinese are building these weapons. And so we want out. We want to be able to build these missiles too. Wow, where's like all this collusion with Russia, So John Bolton is over in Russia now working on this arms control pact. I love it. The Donald comes off of being really strong. Obama accused the Russians of violating this, okay, but Obama didn't do anything. Well, the Donald's going to do something. Like, no, we're not going to do this. If you're making these weapons, we're going to make them. So I love this. The Donald, once again, comes off really strong on foreign policy. I mean, I love it. This is why people like over in Europe, they don't like the Donald. They don't like him in other places. They like it when America looks weak, of course, and they can take advantage of us. Not the Donald. I love it. Speaking of the Donald not being weak, he tweeted, this was this morning at 8:37 a.m. Sadly, it looks like Mexico's police and military are unable to stop the caravan. By the way, we shouldn't call it a caravan. It's a mob. Stop the caravan heading to the southern border of the United States. Criminals are unknown Middle Easterners and mixed in. I have alerted Border Patrol and military that this is a national emergency. Must change laws. He abbreviated emergency kind of emergy. It kind of looks kind of funny. I thought it was a typo at first, but it's emergency. Oh yeah, the Donald. This has already got 70,000 likes on Twitter. Oh, definitely. I've got to try to show you this image. This is going to go down as this image of these people flooding in is really going to go down as something really spectacular. And I don't know if you can see this very well, but this is a video of all these people. They're in Guatemala and they're flooding into Mexico. I guess Mexico doesn't have a really big wall, but these people are just pouring in around this barrier, running into Mexico. Oh, just the image of this. Can you imagine if we saw this at our border, our Mexican-American border, and all these people just running into the United States? Oh my heavens. Oh, this is not going to happen. This is just not going to happen. This is just a huge victory. Donald is really strong on this. And the Democrats, what are they saying? Okay. What are they saying? Oh, yeah, this imagery of all these people just flooding into Mexico. Okay. Have you looked at these people? I mean, these are a bunch of young men. Okay. Supposedly, we've got criminals in there. The Donald's alluding to that. They're not to declare asylum. You've got to be, you've got to be at risk, because of you're threatened because of your race or your religion or your political beliefs. There's 5 things. Okay, so you're basically at fear for your life. You're endangerment, and so that's why you declare asylum. And so there are consulates in Mexico that these people could go to declare asylum with the United States. But no, they're not doing this. This is a huge political stunt, okay, to make us look bad, and then the liberals were still alluding to this is a human rights thing. This is not a human rights thing. They have done surveys down in Latin America. 170 million Latinos want to come to the United States to work or to live, just to live. 170 million. We only have 330 million total people in the United States. This is over half. This would increase almost double, not double, but greatly increase our country by 50%. Not going to happen. Okay. We want law and order. Okay. So I love this. I mean, we do our immigration things. We just need to enforce that border. Okay. Supposedly 70% of Americans want to legalize the illegals who are here. And I don't think that's probably the best plan. I think definitely, as I've said earlier, we need to build a wall and seal the border up, okay? Now, people say this can't be done, okay? This is just garbage. Charlie Kirk has a tweet today. Did you know Hungary built a wall and illegal immigration collapsed by 99%? Illegal immigration went from 391,000 in 2015 to 18,000 in 2016 and to just 1,184 in 2017. Build the wall. Okay, Israel has got a wall with the refugees, the Palestinian refugees, and then constantly lobbing things over it and shooting missiles over it and setting it on fire with tires and doing all kinds of things. No, it works. Walls do work, and they even know this in Europe. Many countries are building walls and fences in Europe. These things will work, okay? And they're a lot cheaper than having people down there all the time trying to protect that border. I mean, we're going to need a wall and people, but with a really good wall, you don't need as many people. So anyhow, I think the Donald is just really doing very well on this, okay? And so Donald also tweeted, in addition to stopping all payments to these countries, which seem to have almost no control of their population, I must, in the strongest of terms, ask Mexico to stop this onslaught. And if unable to do so, I will call up the United States military and close our southern border. Okay, so yes, can he order a National Guard people down there? Yes, Bush did it, and Obama did that. But Donald using the military on United States soil, there are some rules on that. There's some 1880 rules. But anyhow, Donald is serious here, okay? The problem with immigration is just the way we do enforcement of immigration. And we've got the sanctuary cities issue. And so anyhow, there's just been a lot of confusion with immigration, with the Republicans and Democrats not really agreeing what's going on. So anyhow, I think this mob going through Mexico, it continues to increase. Apparently, the military or the police in Mexico were going to stop the mob. It's just too big; they can't do it. So, but anyhow, the Donald is saying, okay, well, I'm just going to cut funding. Because what the left says is that the United States needs to give a lot of money to these countries that try to buoy these countries, these failing countries up so that people won't want to leave. I mean, this is just, I mean, almost impossible. I mean, the only way for us to do that is just like to totally take over these countries, okay? We're not an imperialist country. Look at Puerto Rico, okay? With strong ties to the United States, still, Puerto Rico puts in some like $15 an hour minimum wage or whatever it was, and it just totally bankrupts all the small companies. And so unemployment just skyrockets, and people just leave Puerto Rico and come to the United States. Complete fail. Look at Venezuela. Complete fail. The government there. So anyhow. So Tucker Carlson, he's onto this Khashoggi thing. As I said earlier, this Khashoggi thing is just totally overblown. Okay? We're not quite sure. It looks like the Saudis, when Khashoggi went into their embassy in Istanbul, it looks like they killed him and chopped him in a bunch of pieces or something. They killed him. Okay, this guy was a dissident. This guy was hanging around with Osama bin Laden in high school. Apparently cried when Osama bin Laden died. A big Muslim Brotherhood guy, not willing to condemn Iran. Okay, which is the sworn enemy to Saudi Arabia. This is one reason why we support Saudi Arabia, is that they hate Iran and they are a balance and check on Iranian power. Also, Saudis recently have supported us with Israel and helped out with Israel. So they've been a partner to help us go after Iran and defend Israel. Okay, so good stuff happening there. But of course, the Saudis, they decapitate people all the time. They take homosexuals and they stick them in bags and roll them down hills, and then they see if they're still alive. And if they're still alive, they put them back in the bag. They take it to the top of the hill and they roll them down again until they're dead. I mean, there's incredible human rights things going on in Saudi Arabia. We've always looked the other way just because we get what we want. We get to sell them all these military stuff. Lots of jobs in the United States are building things, very expensive things for the Saudis to buy. A lot of military stuff that they want to buy from us. So anyhow, they're an ally. And so Khashoggi, well, looks like, they didn't like this guy, and looks like they had him killed. They killed him. No one's going to support that, okay? And Saudis are kind of saying it was a rogue operation. They're kind of hemming and hawing, okay? But of course, the media is just going berserk on this thing, and they're just trying to make the Donald look bad. There's accusations of the Donalds making all this money in Saudi Arabia. I mean, it's a field day for them on anything. Of course, the Russian collusion story, as we mentioned earlier with the missiles, well, that's fading away. They're not talking about any Russian collusion. It looks like Mueller's going to be wrapping up his probe soon. So whatever. So anyhow, life goes on. I want to see if I can show you this ad, which is just really just amazing. This ad is from French Hill. So he's a Republican congressman in Arkansas. And let's see if you guys can hear this. This is hilarious. Let's see if it'll play here.
What do you think about what's happening in Washington? Our Congressman French Hill and the Republicans know that it's dangerous to change the presumption of innocence to a presumption of guilt, especially for black men. If the Democrats can do that to a white justice of the Supreme Court with no evidence, no corroboration, and all of her witnesses, including her best friend, say it didn't happen, what will happen to our husbands, our fathers, or our sons when a white girl lies on them? Girl, white Democrats will be lynching black folk again. Honey, I've always told my son, don't be messing around with that. If you get caught, she will cry rape. I'm I'm voting to keep Congressman French Hill and the Republicans because we have to protect our men and boys. We can't afford to let white Democrats take us back to bad old days of race verdicts, life sentences, and lynchings when a white girl screams rape.
Paid for by Black Americans for the President's Agenda. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
In a radio ad supporting Representative French Hill.
So anyhow, but there is a good point here. This believe all women. Well, wait a minute. No, we just believe all women who are on the left. Okay, it's like the Women's Day March. That was not the Women's Day March for all women. That was only for leftist women. Okay, feminazi women. No, conservative women were not invited to that. Okay, the first woman on the court was really RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Well, you might ask, well, what about O'Connor? Justice O'Connor, Sandra Day O'Connor. What about her? Well, she was kind of conservative, kind of turned out to be moderate and kind of liberal, but Ronald Reagan put her on there. She was the first woman. We kind of forgot about her. We're just going to talk about RBG. So anyhow, I tell you that the bias here is really crazy. I was doing lots of driving over the weekend, and I was listening to Tom Shalhoub or one of the Fox News guys. I can't remember. He was going really off on this Hillary Mueller, if I remember her name correctly. This lady who apparently was in a condominium complex, and you get buzzed in through the security doors, and you have a little key fob, to use to get into the security, okay? And so apparently this guy was, I'm going to have to tell you the color of their skin. Otherwise, it's really irrelevant. But what this guy did is that he wanted to get in through the door. And she goes, well, let me see your key fob. Now, it seemed like she was kind of, snooty to this guy, not nice to him. And she goes, well, let me see your key fob. And he goes, well, I don't have it. And she goes, well, what apartment you're in? And she goes, and then, so this guy was black and she was white. And so he starts videotaping her because supposedly she's not going to let him in. Okay. So apparently he didn't have his key fob. She didn't recognize him in the apartment complex or condo thing. And she asks him what apartment he's in. And he goes, I'm not going to tell you. And he goes, what apartment are you in? And she goes, 304. Okay. So apparently he put the camera kind of down and he kind of blasted past her. And then she followed him and he videotaped her. Well, apparently she works at a realty company. They fired her. This guy put this on social media and went crazy. Remember that story? I don't know if I told you or showed you that story. That lady who got on Facebook and said, I was just pulled over by an officer and he was racist and he was white. And he gave me the speeding ticket and threatened to arrest me. And she just goes on and on. And the officer released his dash cam. Oh, he was kind. And she was really snooty to him. And, she just was making this up. Just total lies. I love these body cameras. So anyhow, this guy videotapes her and then complains, about this treatment, and he felt like she was just being racist. She denies being racist. She goes, I was just doing my job. They told her I was just wanting to let this guy in. I didn't recognize him. I was trying to keep people out who are not, who don't have the key fobs, who don't live here. So anyhow, and there are some other episodes of these things happening, and so she denies any racism, but, everyone says she's racist, okay? And, how are you going to prove that unless someone admits to being racist? I really don't know. How to be able to tell what's in our heart and what's in our mind is really hard. So anyhow, that ad was funny, but really the Me Too movement is, I think, bouncing back a little bit. You've got Keith Ellison, who's being accusations. You even have a Cory Booker being accused of inappropriate conduct with another man. I mean, are we just going to believe them? Cory Booker, do we want an FBI investigation? Oh, we really need an FBI investigation. This is not a court of law, but we want an FBI investigation. So anyhow, I think this is really kind of blowing back a little bit. Anyhow, the Donald. Oh, the Donald on his, oh, this is cool. You know, if you've noticed the Donald with his rallies, they make him really picture perfect. And this one in Montana is the coolest picture. The sun is setting. I used to live in Montana. It's such a beautiful state. You've got Air Force One out on the left in the background. It's just sitting on the tarmac there. You've got these mountains. You got the sun setting, and then you have all these Trump supporters. They've set these things up for the cameras to make, and then they put Donald like on a stage in the middle of all these people. It really looks really cool, and it's very picture perfect. His rallies. If you go to Donald's Twitter feed, look at his picture. As a matter of fact, I've made that the same. I did this first, I think. I made that the background of my Twitter thing or whatever that picture is called. The background, the wallpaper or whatever, because it's a beautiful picture of Air Force One, but of the rally and Donald being just in the middle of it. It's just so awesome. So anyhow, the Donald is just tweeting up a storm. He this morning, I just wanted to touch on a few of these. He just sent out, shocking report that the United States is paying more for illegal immigrants than the Trump's wall, immigrant births. That's a story from the Washington Examiner that Donald's retweeting. Now Cato Institute will argue that these immigrants, even though they're illegal, they come to the United States, they work, they shop at Walmart, they add a lot to the economy, that they use false Social Security numbers, but they pay taxes, and then they don't even get to claim the Social Security benefits because they're illegal aliens. I think there is a small argument there, but I think overwhelmingly that I do agree that all of these immigrants or illegal aliens that come here, and especially if they're not working, that they can be a huge drain on our society. And we've got so much socialism going on. We've got all of these welfare benefits that we offer, all these big government goodies that we give out nowadays, then this doesn't scale well. Otherwise, anyone could come here. As long as they're going to live by the laws of the land, they could come here and work. They can work. And if they can't find a job, then they could go back home. Okay? But if they can't find a job and then we have to pay for them and put them on welfare, that's not going to scale. It'll bankrupt us. So anyhow, the Donald was tweeting about he's going to Texas. He is just so energetic, incredibly energetic. Last night he was tweeting. I was driving late. He's tweeting at 11 o'clock at night. I mean, the guy is just extremely busy. We are getting such a great value here. Now, I mentioned Mitch McConnell. So he was in a restaurant in Louisville, and people started yelling at him and screaming at him. Elaine Chao, his wife, kind of spoke up. But anyhow, so people started yelling and screaming at him. He was at this Cuban restaurant. This guy approached the table. He started yelling at him. Oh, yeah, he said, "Why don't you get out of here?" The protester said. "Why don't you leave our entire country?" Okay, it looks like. And so before the camera started rolling, the protester slammed his fists on the table and threw food out of the restaurant. Then Chow actually engaged with the man, but McConnell, who dealt with this kind of public treatment before, appears unruffled, sipping his drink. BuzzFeed reported that off camera, another woman approached McConnell and started screaming at the top of her lungs, yelling, "You're a traitor to this country," repeatedly, and told him how he was ruining this country. The woman then left the restaurant and flipped the middle finger at McConnell through the window. Then the story says, This is from marketwatch.com. Not everyone was bashing him, however. Some diners shouted down the protesters, saying, "Leave him alone," and gesturing him to move away from the table. McConnell reportedly later thanked his supporters and shook their hands. The leader and Secretary Shao enjoyed their meal in Louisville last night, and they appreciate those who spoke up against incivility, a McConnell spokesman said in a statement. They hope other patrons weren't too inconvenienced by left-wing tantrums. As the leader often says, the Senate will not be intimidated by the antics of far-left protesters. Chow reportedly asked the manager to comp the meal because she and her husband were treated so badly. Like the diners in the restaurant, Twitter offered a range of responses. Dan Shapiro says, "Stop doing this. It's wrong, period. And if that's not reason enough, it is. It also helps them. Be smart, be in control, do the work to win." Okay, so apparently I don't even know who this Dan Shapiro, he's a blue check, but apparently he's a liberal. So anyhow, it's good that the leftists are even realizing that this kind of behavior is just ridiculous. It's uncivil. I wish that some Democrat leaders would speak out against this, and instead they add fuel to the flame. HRC talks about not being civil until we win, and then Eric Holder's talking about, yeah, when we get low, we just kick them. When they get low, we just kick them. There you go. Another really cool little article, the last one of the podcast, is that the EPA reverses Obama-era last-minute uranium mining regulations. So Obama, right when he was leaving the presidency, he said, oh, we're going to have all these rules about uranium mining and thorium mill tailings. The regulations were put in place January 19, 2017, just hours before Barack Obama left office and President Donald Trump's inauguration. In a rush to regulate during the waning hours of the previous administration, the agency proposed a regulation that would have imposed significant burdens on uranium miners and the communities they support. Donald's tweeting about fake news. Anyhow, and the regulation imposed significant burdens on uranium miners and the communities they support. That was Acting Administrator Andrew Wheeler said in this press release. And so the chairman of the Senate Environment and Public Works Committee, John Barrasso, Republican from Wyoming, he praised the agency's move. Today's announcement is the right decision. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission, our nation's principal nuclear regulator, has said there is no health or safety justification for EPA's midnight ruling. The NRC has regulated in situ uranium recovery for nearly 40 years, Barrasso said. The agency has never found an instance of groundwater contamination that would be addressed by this rule. I'm glad the EPA has acknowledged this reality. I applaud it for withdrawing this punishing and unnecessary regulation on America's uranium producers. I love it. You know, nuclear fuel is definitely, and energy is really definitely a way to go. And if the libtards were really freaked out about carbon emission, first of all, they wouldn't drive their cars or fly in their jets anymore. They would just stop, okay? But they continue just doing whatever they want to do. And then we would definitely have nuclear power plants everywhere because they do nothing to increase carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. But it's just a big sham and it's a hoax. It's a hoax that, you know, this paranoid that humans were greatly altering the climate. And even if we stop burning all carbon, they say the climate would continue to change, okay? Such a joke. I wanted to close with the scripture from Mark 12. And when they were come, verse 14, they say unto him, Master, we know that they are true and carest not for man, for thou regardest not the person of men, but teachest the way of God in truth. Is it lawful to give tribute to Caesar or not? Oh, should we pay our taxes or no? Shall we give or shall we not give? But he, knowing their hypocrisy, said unto them, okay, this is of course Christ speaking, why tempt ye me? Bring me a penny that I may see it. And verse 16, and they brought it. And he said unto them, whose is this image and superscription? And they said unto him, Caesar's, pointing to the penny, Caesar's head there. And Jesus answering said unto them, Render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's, and they marveled at him. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Philip Koerper. This is the Philip Koerper Show, copyright 2018. Thank you.